G'day, I'm Paul. So if you thought the Mazda SUV range was a little confusing, it's just about to get a bit more confusing, but cheaper, which is a positive because it was quite expensive. Now we're talking specifically today about the CX-60, which is the entry level to the bigger SUV range. This sits above the CX-5. Still only 5 seats, but it gives you a little bit more room inside the cabin, and different also to the CX-5, it's a rear wheel drive vehicle where the CX-5 is either front wheel drive or all wheel drive. Now the way they've been able to slash the price here by a considerable margin is by ditching the 6-cylinder engine that's been featured in the rest of the range and going down the path of a smaller 4-cylinder engine that should, in theory, be efficient, but I'll explain why that may not be the case pretty soon. This here is one step up from the base model. The base model is now the Pure, the CX-60 Pure. That's priced at around $45,000. This here is the CX-60 Evolve, which is one step up from that, still retaining that 4-cylinder engine, and it's priced at around the $50,000 mark. So pretty decent value for money. Now, today we're going to do a detailed review of this car. So if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you've got time codes on the screen. Or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. Now on the design front, this looks pretty much identical to the rest of the range. You will notice smaller wheels here and a slightly chubbier rubber profile, but outside of that, it looks pretty similar. Full LED headlights up the front here, these chrome highlights, which I could kind of take or leave, but styling is entirely subjective. This color as well that I could take or leave, but some people like it. I've seen a fair few of these on the road now, and you know, turns a bit of heads, whether it's for the right reasons or not, I'm not entirely sure. Around the side here, this is what I'm talking about with the wheels. So they are 18-inch alloy wheels with 60 profile rubber, so that is enormous. Now we had complained previously about the ride here in the CX-60 being really firm. Mazda claims to have done a revision on the ride to give it a bit more ride comfort. So we'll test that out today and see how it performs compared to the last CX-60 that we drove. But a smaller wheel size isn't bad from a ride point of view, but it just looks like an entry-level model in that sense. Black wheel arch cladding over here. You've got nothing written on the side here either. The other Mazda models have inscription here that tells you which engine that is, but this is just blank. You also don't get things like privacy glass or a glass roof. You do still get proximity sensing though, which is good. And then this black highlight down the bottom section there. Come around to the back with me. Now around the back, full LED tail lights. You have SkyActiv G, which is the designation for this 4-cylinder engine, and then the CX-60 badge over there. You'll notice across the entire CX-60 range, they don't really have any designations for the trim levels. So it all just sort of says CX-60 with the engine designation on the back. So no one really knows how much money you've spent on it. So what do you reckon about the design? Do you think it looks good? Do you think that it looks a little bit cheap here at the entry level? Let me know your thoughts. And what do you think about the pricing as well? I think that's probably the most important aspect for this car, because that is one of the most critical points people have had when shopping for a CX-60. Okay, so we're in the CX-60. This is what the key looks like. You've got lock, unlock, boot, Mazda logo just there, and then blank on the back. This is a proximity sensing key, so you can just grab that door handle. You've got a push button start just up the top. What we're going to do, because I've already done a detailed review on the CX-60, I'm just going to run through the stuff here that's a little bit different here for the entry-level model. If you do want to check out our full review of the CX-60 that includes all of the detail on the interior, there is a link in the description below, or a QR code on the screen. Now, what has changed here? Well, the screens are different. So if you go for the absolute entry level, you get a 7-inch display ahead of the driver, but regardless of which 4-cylinder variant you go for, you get this smaller 10.25-inch display. Now, functionally, it's very similar to the larger screens you're going to find in the rest of the CX-60 range, but unfortunately, some of the functionality has disappeared, and that probably the most important one is it being a touchscreen. Now, in other variants, you can't use it as a touchscreen unless you are using smartphone mirroring. Here, on the other hand, you can't use it as a touchscreen at all. So even if you are using smartphone mirroring like Apple CarPlay, which it has wirelessly, you can't jump to the side menus, which is really frustrating. You have to basically use the knob here in the center to just turn all the way through all the menus until you get to the side. So it is really hard to use while you're driving, and I just don't understand why you can't have the touchscreen work here like it can in other Mazda variants. You do still have Android Auto available as wireless as well, but it suffers the same fate. You don't have the ability to use it as a touchscreen, which is pretty frustrating. On the sort of quality front though, you do still get all of these soft touch finishes around the cabin. You get this rather odd looking texture here on the center. It's like a sort of mesh grille of some sort, which is a little bit annoying, but no, at least it's not piano black. It could be worse. Outside of that, this does feel nice and premium. And for this kind of price, 50 grand, you are getting an interior that does sort of feel quite sort of luxurious and, like you're getting good value for money. The difference here between the Evolve and the Pure models is the seats. This gets this sort of faux leather material. The entry level gets a cloth material instead, but regardless of whether you go for the base or this one spec up, you have manually adjustable seats, which I think is pretty cheap on a $50,000 car, that you got to manually adjust your seats like you were sort of back in the 1980s. Outside of those things though, dual zone automatic climate controls, litany of blank buttons here because you miss out on things like heated seats. Kind of just gives you an indication that you haven't stumped up there for that upper grade model. You also have manual steering adjustment there as well for both tilt and reach adjustment. In terms of the second row, CX-60 is great in terms of space. You have decent amount of legroom there for adults, plenty of room for kids as well, and it's one of the highlights of this being a bigger platform that you're going to find on the CX-5. Big bonus with the new CX-5 though is that it does sit on a bigger platform as well. We don't know pricing yet though, so even though the CX-5 is a big step forward in terms of its tech and features and the like, unfortunately we don't know the pricing, and even though it is slightly bigger, it is likely to sort of roll over and overlap here a little with the CX-60, which is why I find the Mazda range so confusing. You really do have just so many grades and variants and it doesn't really make a great deal of sense. Outside of that, there in the second row, you've got air vents there as well, center armrest that folds down. In terms of cargo space in the boot there, you've got just under 600 litres available. If you do want to drop the second row, that space expands to over 1,700 litres. It's a decent sized boot as well. This vehicle itself is actually quite reasonably sized. You have to step up to the CX-70 or the CX-90 if you want 7 seats, but as a 5-seater, this actually offers a fair bit of room inside the cabin. Before you hit the road, it's worth thinking about insurance. That's why we've partnered with Youi for this review. For insurance that's a bit more U-shaped, head to youi.com.au. So we've just hit the road in the CX-60. I'll be really curious to see how this drives because the ride has always been a problem, and dropping down to a 4-cylinder is a curious choice. So let's address, I guess, the engine first. So this engine, 2.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol. Now that differs to the rest of the engines in this range because they're either 6-cylinder diesel, 6-cylinder petrol, or a plug-in hybrid that uses a 4-cylinder petrol engine. And both the diesel and the petrol 6-cylinder engines are fantastic. I'm such a big fan of those engines. They drive really nicely. They're just let down by the transmission and a few other sort of little bits and pieces, but primarily the engines are great. So here they are taking away the best part of those cars and fitting a 4-cylinder. So this is about 140 kilowatts of power, 250 newton meters of torque. Not a huge amount, and on paper it seems inadequate for a vehicle this size, which weighs sort of 1,800 kilos. So it is significantly less than the plug-in hybrid, but it's not exactly like it's an MX-5. So let's see what it feels like here behind the wheel. Give that a punch. Wow, slow gearbox and very, very leisurely acceleration. Like really waiting for things to happen. So, which is pretty much what I thought was going to be the case, and that's confirmed it. I did take it for a spirited drive earlier, and they refer to this 8-speed transmission as being refreshed or recalibrated. What they've done here is basically what Kia has done with the Tasman, where what you do when you notice that the driver is a bit more aggressive on the throttle, you start holding gears for longer. It causes the engine to be at a higher RPM, but it sits within its power and torque band, so it feels a bit more responsive to the driver. And the way it does that is by holding the gears and also adjusting throttle maps. So when you're sort of a third on the throttle, it's kind of telling the computer that you're sort of 80% on the throttle. So it just feels a lot more energetic and punchy. Now, the reality is if you do go harder on the throttle, you just have no extra go. Typically, you'd expect the harder you go on the throttle, the faster the car to go. Here, it's not the case because they're trying to extract as much as they can early on. And it's just a kind of a faux way to make this engine feel better than it is. And unfortunately, it just doesn't have the mumbo that it needs. This really should have been a turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol. It would have been the perfect thing for this size vehicle. Naturally aspirated, though, it just feels quite underdone when you're sort of getting around. That's also reflected in the fuel economy. While they claim a combined average of 7.5 litres per 100 Ks, we've been driving this for a little while now, and it's sitting much closer to 8.5, 9 litres per 100 Ks. And that's a bit of a problem because it means that you're having to rev this thing out to keep up with traffic. You're not really getting the fuel economy benefits. So while you're saving a bit of money up front, kind of throwing it all away by having to spend money on fuel to get this thing moving. Now let's talk about road noise. Even though this has these pretty chubby, big profile tyres, there is still a fair bit of road noise, and you notice it most on coarse chip roads. And you know, one of the things that I think they could have refined a little bit better, you will notice that, you know, without electrification on the engine, the smaller engine as well, they've taken a lot out of the price here, and I suspect maybe some sound deadening may have gone with the price as well, because this does feel a little noisier than other Mazda models, but my ears could be deceiving me. Now on the visibility front, I can see clearly down the front there. The wing mirrors are reasonably sized. Visibility out the back is pretty good too. Decent reverse camera, so tick on all those fronts when it comes to manoeuvrability at low speeds. Okay, so let's see what body control's like at 130. It's the maximum speed limit here in Australia, and the same speed that we test all cars for our sine waves. It's actually not too bad there. You can see here without that huge amount of mass, I've been able to dial out a little bit of firmness from the suspension, and it means that it just comes across those sine waves quite nicely. Okay, bouncy road time. We do this at 90 k's an hour to see what the ride's like on some shocking quality roads. Look, surprisingly, the ride is actually not that bad. It's a big improvement over the last CX-60 that we had, which was a higher grade 6-cylinder diesel model. It is still on the firmer side, but it's nowhere near as bad as the vehicles on bigger wheels. So whatever retuning they've done has worked to some degree, but also it'll come down to that massive profile on the tyres as well. Okay, time to do a little bit of performance testing. So there's two drive modes here, normal and sport. We test all cars back to back in the same way around the ride and handling track to see how they go. I've complimented CX-60 before for feeling great as a rear biased all-wheel drive car. This is just rear-wheel drive, so I think this should have a similar feel. God, it takes a long time to get up to speed. Brake pedal feels a little bit wooden as well. Whoa, these tyres aren't very good. Yeah, I think these are sort of eco-friendly tyres that don't have anywhere near as much traction as the sportier grades of CX-60. And I've got my foot just pinned to the board here, and there just isn't a great deal happening. So from a handling standpoint though, it's like the MX-5. Once it picks up speed, you can kind of throw it around and have some fun with it. It feels sort of fairly engaging on that front, but it is just very wallowy through some of these corners. You can see they've really softened it out here for this profile of tyre. Yeah, even in this sport mode, it's just not able to really have the go that it needs. That 250 newton meters of torque, it's running out of that very, very quickly. So yeah, okay, but not amazing. Okay, let's test the semi-autonomous steering system. We do this at 70 k's an hour, and we'll see how well it will keep itself within the lane. Okay, there it is. So first lane here is typically the easiest, and then it becomes harder as we move our way up. We're doing an okay job here. Jump over to the next lane. Okay, and that's active now. Ooh, it's gone very close to that line. It's kind of wandering all over the place here. Doesn't really fill me with confidence. We'll try the outermost lane. See what it's like up here. Okay, it's active. Let go of the wheel. It's crossed the line there. Yeah, not a very good system, unfortunately. Okay, time to do a little bit of performance testing. I'm going to pop this into sport mode. I'm going to turn traction control off. Not that I think will make much of a difference. But we'll go from 0 through to 120 so we can see what our overtaking time is like as well. Okay, here we go. Oh wow, this is slow. All right. 60, 80, 100, 120. Wow, that has taken an eternity to get there. All right, let's see what the official time is. So 0 to 100, 10.22 seconds. There are some 2-ton plus dual cab utes that are quicker than this to 100. 80 to 120, 6.75 seconds. Now, that to me is probably the most alarming number, because if you're overtaking on a road trip and you need to overtake a car or some traffic, I mean, that is a long time to be on the wrong side of the road. And remember, I'm the only person in the car here. You can imagine if you had the full family, it would be slower than that again. So, I don't know. I understand they wanted to make this car more affordable for people, but ultimately making a lot of sacrifices here to shave the price down. So let's go do a stop from 100. Okay, let's see what the brake and tyre package is like. Get to 100 first. All right, there's 100. Here we go. Okay. So 100 to 0, 2.84 seconds, 39.05 meters. So anything between 35 and 40 is pretty reasonable, but you know, given what we experienced earlier on the ride and handling track coming into turn 1 with the tyres, I suspect the tyres are the limiting factor here and the reason why this doesn't pull up any quicker. So it's like a metre or two longer than the performance variants, which have better tyres. So, right, how quickly does this go in reverse? Let's find out. Here we go. All right, so 50 kilometres an hour. So, Mazda CX-60 with the 4-cylinder. Unfortunately, the prognosis is not very good. There is a cure though, and that is a 6-cylinder. So, you know, you take all the good bits of this car and you just make it better by adding 2 extra cylinders, which is what works as it is at the moment. So it's a car that I understand they've tried to bring in to reduce the cost, because people were complaining about the cost. Unfortunately, it comes at the cost of having an engine that is underpowered for this size of vehicle. Like, and even with me in it, it feels underpowered, let alone having an entire family in there. So if you are going to shop for one of these, I'd strongly recommend a test drive. Make sure you put the entire family in, and make sure you go and do a drive to where you would normally go so you can see exactly what it feels like. And if it is underpowered for you, just step up to the 6-cylinder or the plug-in hybrid. They're both much better options. So let me know what you reckon. Do you think they've undercooked this? Do you agree with my verdict? I'm keen to find out. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure you like it and share it with your mates. But until next time, flies. See ya.